got a very sick daughter. No one will help. What are you?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2024 horror thriller, The Final Pact. The film is written and directed by F.C. Rabbath and it stars Austin Freeman, Julia Vassie, we have Charlie Prince and Sam Sneary. Right, the film focuses on three young priests who are literally a day or two away from graduating, and they are told on their last day that they are all going to face a final exam, a final test before they graduate. And this will determine their futures and if they actually graduate at all. These three priests don't necessarily take it overly seriously. They decide to go and celebrate that night, qualifying and passing and becoming priests. Along the way, they help a lady who is stuck on the side of the road, who claims she must get home because her daughter is ill. They all return there with her to try and help the daughter. And fairly soon after this, they realise that in actual fact, what they are presented with here is the test, or what they suspect to be the test. When they return, they are presented and faced with very personal terrors that they have to face and overcome in order to pass the test, but also stay alive. Right. What are my thoughts on The Final Pact? Well, FC Rabbath, if you like, for me is kind of the kind of director that makes quite original horror films. The first film I saw of his was A Brilliant Monster, I believe it was called. That came out several years ago, and it was actually, I think, one of the first films that I was sent as a screener many moons ago. I think it was about 2018, 2019, something like that. And I thought even that, there was flaws and faults with that. I thought it was quite an interesting horror film. And what we get here as well is what is not definitely what you could describe as a traditional horror film. It isn't that at all. It's actually quite a thoughtful horror film, and it kind of leaves you with things to ponder. And sometimes those can be the best movies for me, whether it be a thriller, action, horror, drama. If after the film closes it can kind of leave you pondering a little bit from what you've seen, I think generally speaking the film has done a good job. And I think overall this is a well-made film that is quite nicely polished. It's got a nice polish to it, the film. It's quite slick. It's got some good direction. It's got some good performances. There's there's like a streak of lightness that runs through the film that almost borders on comedic at times that I think is at odds with the rest of the film. There's a couple of characters in the film that don't necessarily feel like real people. They almost feel like parodies almost, but it's not enough to kind of make you dwell on the negatives and that kind of stuff. It's as I've said, quite a thoughtful film. It's actually a film that deals with a lot of different themes and deals with them quite smartly and cleverly. It deals with things like temptation, loyalty, faith, commitment, and not necessarily from a priest perspective, even though, these guys are playing three priests. It just kind of deals with them themes in general. Certainly I thought so anyway. And what this test that these priests have to go through, it will definitely test their resilience and their faith in order to kind of make it through this test in one piece. It's also a film as well. If you overanalyze it and kind of look at, you know, this test that these priests are going through, you kind of think, hang on a minute, why are these priests going through this test? Why aren't these other priests like at all these, places all around the world that are qualifying to be priests? Do they go through a similar test? I think the film could have kind of touched on that in a sense of this is a test that is international sort of thing, and how that would work, the logistics, I don't really know. But when you actually watch this film and realize what the test is, I suppose it doesn't necessarily need to over explain it. You kind of accept it, but it just kind of feels like there's just this corner of America, this place where they teach people how to be priests and stuff and qualify them to be priests, and then for them to graduate they have to pass this quite sinister and complex test. And it just sort of seems, well, why are these priests the only ones that do it? Why is nobody else doing it, sort of thing. I thought there were some strong performances here, but the two standout performances for me were Austin Freeman as Paul, who you would describe, I suppose, as like, out of the three priests, like the main priest, if you like, the main protagonist. And he's a troubled guy, really. He's really a priest who doesn't have any faith or has lost his faith. He's got a missing sister from many, many years ago. He's got a father that he feels he wronged. So he kind of he questions his own faith, sort of thing. And this test kind of makes him confront all of that. So he's actually quite a complex and layered character. And then you've got Julia Vass's character, Lucy, who is the test, I suppose. And I don't want to spoil it by saying too much about what the test is and what the kind of stuff they face and so on and so forth. Because if you're going to watch this film, which will be due out in a few weeks, if you're going to watch this film, then I don't want to spoil that for you. But needless to say, there are supernatural elements to it. There are some sinister things that are going as part of it. As you would expect in a horror film. But also at the same time, I think in regards to negatives here for the film, as a horror film, it leans more heavily on originality and thoughtfulness rather than full-on scares. And I think if we'd have had a handful of genuine creep-out moments in the film, I think it would have elevated it a little bit more, certainly in my opinion. I think a lot of people will watch this and maybe think, okay, it's an interesting idea, interesting concept, but it didn't necessarily scare me. I think traditional horror fans might feel disappointed when they watch this. But if you go into this film understanding what it is you're going in to watch, maybe you'll enjoy it a little bit better. It's quite an original, thoughtful horror film that doesn't lean too heavily into horror, but it's also got quite a cool and interesting concept. So yeah, check this film out when it comes out in a few weeks, and I will of course be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.